What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Week 11 Sunday Night Recap presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Simon, joined, as always, by my very handsome and always interjecting co-hosts, John, Luke, and Jay. What's up, boys?
What up?
What's happening?
You guys doing all right today? Good day of football.
Oh, yeah. Good day of
Great
football.
day of football. I definitely didn't fall asleep on the couch while watching some of these games today. Absolutely did not happen.
I think I know what game you had on. You must have had the Patriots-Jets game on, right?
Oh, boy. What a stinker.
Until the very end.
I'm going to start using that one at night instead of melatonin, I think. Just throw that game on my headphones and just
bottle it.
straight to sleep.
Here's your AFC North games right here in this bottle.
I would like to prescribe to you some 2022 New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Should help with the insomnia immediately. Guys, we got some people in the chat ready for today's show. Albert in here. What's up, Albert? Welcome in. Glad to have you here. And Just Killer in here saying, what a blowout this Cowboys game is. Yeah, I did not see that coming. It is nuts what's going on to the Vikings. I feel like it was because everyone finally said, okay, the Vikings are good, right? Like right, finally admitted that the Vikings were good. I feel like there was a switch.
Same thing happened with the Eagles.
Exactly. As soon as everyone agrees, they're like, the NFL just comes
so fast, my friend.
Changes what we're thinking. And Albert
parity in the NFL is a son of a bitch.
Every single time, right? It's not like college.
Every time.
So I say that, and then Tennessee goes out there and loses to an unranked South Carolina. Like they score 63 points on them. So I guess parity exists over there as well. And Just Killer saying, I actually said I think the Cowboys are going to win this. Nice call, my man. Nice call. I thought they had a chance. I did not think this was a possibility, this level of blowout. This is absolutely nuts. Guys, today we're going to be breaking down all of these games that have taken place and previewing tonight's Sunday night football game. Before we do that, though, a couple reminders. First and foremost, if you're watching this video, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you're on Facebook and you like what you're seeing, go ahead and hit that like button. Same thing on YouTube. And then subscribe to FanDuel. While you're there, there's a big red button right below the video. After you do that, you should find FanDuel on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. They have a whole team of killer content creators helping you guys win some cash and win your leagues. And it's almost playoff time, baby. So make sure you are following everywhere over there. You guys ready to get into some of these games?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I figured we would go ahead and start with this Sunday night football matchup. Preview this game tonight. After some of the boring games today, I am hoping for an absolute barn burner between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. And our friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook seem to be alluding to that being a pretty good possibility. 52.5 over under. The Chiefs 5.5 point favorites on the road in this one. I'm expecting a good game, but what I'm really excited about is we are going to see this Los Angeles Chargers team almost back to full force health-wise offensively. Mike Williams is expected to be back in this offense. They're saying he's playing, no snap count. Keenan Allen also going to play, though they have stated he will likely be on a snap count tonight. We're going to see these guys back in the offense for the first time in a while together. Jay, with these guys coming back, first game back, Keenan Allen on a pitch count, Mike Williams saying he's a full go. What is your confidence level in starting these two Chargers wide receivers tonight?
I'm a lot more confident in Mike Williams. He's the one who's been, confident all week saying that he was going to get in, and it looks like he shouldn't have a snap count. Keenan Allen, I feel like he's always confident. He could be, have a sprained ankle and he's, I'm going to play, and then go out there and not play. So I'm more confident going with Mike Williams, but honestly, if these guys are active, they're the type of players that I'm starting. Even on a snap count, Keenan Allen can have a good game.
John Luke, this morning when we were talking through some of this, you were pretty hesitant to put Keenan Allen in your lineups. Does that change now that they've said he is playing, but he's on a snap count, or does it make you even more reserved to start him?
It's the same. It hasn't changed because this is what I expected. It was either going to be this route, this outcome, or he was just going to be ruled out entirely. I didn't expect them to be suited up and completely get rid of the injury status here. So it's largely the same. I'm more concerned for Keenan Allen. If you have to play him tonight, cool with it. He's Keenan Allen, and he does good stuff. His work is very good when he plays. But don't be surprised if you get a little bit of a stinker tonight. It's a possibility.
He could do good stuff on 8 snaps. Know what I mean? And then you're probably not too thrilled for fantasy. Like you can see good stuff on a very small sample size, and if he's on a
high scoring game. That is like the fact that he can have a great game today means that probably should play him in most situations.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Especially at this point, right?
Yeah, if you're making this decision now, what you're just
Right.
I think you already made a decision.
It's Keenan Allen, or you're going to pick up Cornell Powell in his first NFL start and plug him in off the waiver wire. Like
Ray McCloud. I mean, which one?
That's
Keenan
tough.
Allen over Ray McCloud with a chance of meatballs.
100%.
Unless
it's a like 1,500 point per pass or punt return, then go Ray McCloud in that case. I don't think Keenan Allen does punt returns anymore.
No, my Joe, you say that like half jokingly. My girlfriend's league with the crazy scoring has the most absurd punt return yards. Like it is like a full point per punt return yard or something absurd like that. And so it's like point per punt return yard. And so Ray McCloud is actually like a superstar player
101
in that league. Like there was like a battle on the waiver wire for Ray McCloud once people figured out how the scoring system worked.
You got to get us like a screenshot of like his game log in that league.
I'll get one for you.
Definitely.
My girlfriend was like, should I pick him up? And I was like, no. And then she showed me his game logs and I was like, pull out those league settings right now.
I don't even think this is the same game.
Okay, this is not fantasy football. This is fantasy punt returns or something like that. Also on the Chargers side of the ball, I know Justin Herbert has been a little bit disappointing for fantasy. Not that he's been bad. He just hasn't been to that level that you expected of him whenever you drafted him. Now, hopefully he's getting healthier each week. And with these two wide receivers back, John Luke, do you think we're going to see a second half renaissance for Justin Herbert over the back 8 games of this season?
I don't know if you can call it a renaissance because this is what we wanted or expected coming into the season, right? This is like the Chargers year. Everything was working for him. But I think that they can get back to that. It seems like they are. They're getting there. After these injuries earlier on in the season, it's been rough.
Absolutely. On the other side of the ball for the Kansas City Chiefs, I see Just Killer in here saying, pretty sure we're missing a few players. If I'm not mistaken, Juju is out. Yes, Juju Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman both out. Mecole Hardman was put on the IR. Juju Smith-Schuster still, I believe, in concussion protocol, right, from that hit last week. So he is not playing this week. But that provides opportunity for some of the other receiving options in this offense. And we all know the hot name this week. The hot name in fantasy has been one Mr. Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney's been the hot name. John Luke, I feel like every question we've gotten about whether or not to start Kadarius Toney, we've wanted to say Kadarius Toney, whether or not he was the right answer. What are your expectations for Toney tonight with these top 2 options out and what's supposed to be a shootout? Top 24, top 12? Like, what are you hoping for from him?
I think top 24 is absolutely in his range of outcomes this tonight. I think they're going to try and work him more into this offense. The snap share hasn't really been there yet, but it's expected, right? He's a wide receiver coming into the team mid-season. They obviously want him because they traded for him, and they're starting to get him more involved. And I think the Mecole Hardman, the Juju Smith-Schuster injuries are just accelerating that. So I would expect tonight. I think wide receiver, like back end wide receiver 2, is probably his around like his upper level, but more likely maybe high end wide receiver 3.
For him, the range of outcomes for me are just all over.
They're big.
We could see this be an MVS game where MVS is featured. It's MVS, Travis Kelce. Maybe they get the running game going and Kadarius Toney gets his couple of plays designed for him. But I could also see Kadarius Toney after going 4% of snaps his first week, 45% of snaps his second week, kind of starting to get that full snap share like you've been talking about, Jay. I'm not convinced of it, but that's well within his range of outcomes. And if that's the case, if a player of that caliber, that electric, is on the field for the Kansas City Chiefs in a shootout without their top 2 wide receivers, then the sky's the limit. Like this dude could be a huge game for Toney. I'm fine taking the risk. Like there's so much upside here that I want that risk in my lineup. And if it's a stinker, it's a stinker. Jay, how you feeling about Mr. Toney?
You pretty much said everything I would have said. I could see him winding up as the wide receiver 1 on the week. I could see him finishing with a goose egg. It's a wide range.
Hot. Coolster in here saying I have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, but can only play one. Who am I playing? John Luke, who you plugging in?
Mike Williams. Mike Will.
Give me big Mike. You agree, Jay?
Yeah, clean sweep.
One of them's on a snap count, one of them's not. So Keenan Allen is on a snap count. Mike Williams are saying is a full go.
I think Mike Williams is a better receiver at this point in their careers too, but that's just me.
Oh, no, I agree. But that just makes it super easy, right? One of these guys is not playing every snap. The other one, they have not said that yet. Also, Albert in here letting us know this Broncos-Raiders game is going to overtime.
Yes, sir.
OT.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Scamper's in here with the hi, guys. What's up, Scamps?
Hi, Scamps.
Glad to
The
have
game
you
we
in
all
here.
wanted to go to overtime this week, right?
The Broncos Raiders game.
Exactly.
The Broncos Raiders game.
There's worse games I could have picked.
New England Jets.
Yeah, New
which
England.
we've
Like
already
if
mentioned.
That is true.
3-3 overtime.
3-3 going in overtime.
Yeah, no thanks. I would have been out on that one. The other thing I wanted to talk about on this Kansas City side of the ball before we get into the games that happened already today is the running back situation. So we saw Isaiah Pacheco kind of take over as the lead back. And when I say kind of, I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 4 snaps last week. He was not involved at all. Jerick McKinnon had that third down role locked up, but Isaiah Pacheco looked like their lead back. JL, are you buying into the fact that Pacheco's now the lead back in this offense, or do you think we're going to see a gross split with him and CEH?
I think we're still going to see a rotation, but I think Pacheco's making a case to get probably the biggest share. It's really going to depend on game and game script. And so I don't think that we're going to have clarity. And I think if we just look at the last couple weeks, it's going to be us chasing our tail.
Jay, how do you feel about Pacheco? Do you have more confidence than JL?
I pretty much agree with you, Seth. The one thing I will say is I do think it is going to lean more on Pacheco's side. I think CEH will be more involved in just 4 snaps, but Pacheco has just looked like the better player on the field. He's been more explosive. The problem is Jerick McKinnon is in there and the 2-minute drill, passing downs. Pacheco is really the guy that, is going to play between the 20s. So what's the upside in this offense that's obviously pass first? I like Pacheco, but I think you have to really consider that his upside is really a middling RB2.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys on that one. But he's startable. He's a startable running back in fantasy. 100%. So if you got to start him, you can start him. And this is a fun game to start any of the players in. Before we move on from here, we had a question from Coolster in here. Said, I started 2 running backs today and am winning because of them. Who did I play? Yeah. I'm guessing one Mr. Tony Pollard is one of those 2 running backs. If you're winning because of them.
Yeah, that was
maybe
Montgomery.
David Pollard.
Jamal Williams could be another one. Maybe you started Tony Pollard, the backup running backs leading you to victory this week, Coolster. That's my final guess. Joe, who else you think he started? Tony Pollard and
maybe Samaje Perine. Maybe he's super desperate. Super desperate Perine.
Pollard and Jamal.
No, RB2. He said
well
RB2.
Done, Simon.
Oh, I didn't even see the RB2 right there. I started
two RB2s. Really, yeah.
100%.
I just completely ignored that second number 2.
Guys, we're going to get into these games that have happened so far today. But before we do that, unfortunately, part of fantasy is talking about the injuries that took place. We got to keep our eye on them. Jay, you want to give us a rundown of the injuries that happened today across the league?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there were some pretty decent, decently significant ones that happened. Wan'Dale Robinson for the New York Giants, he was having a great game, caught the ball, went out of bounds, and pulled up and grabbed his knee. It looked like it was due to the turf at MetLife Stadium. Unfortunately, he was quickly ruled out. I'm not sure what's going to go on with him. Matthew Stafford left again with another concussion. This is now 2 concussions within 3 weeks. I would not be surprised to see him miss extended time, especially with the way that the Rams are playing. Kyle Pitts, unfortunately, went down, got tackled, his knee twisted, could be MCL, ACL. Still too early to know, but he was ruled out as well. It did not look good, I'm going to be honest. Justin Fields, although he didn't leave the game, he was in a lot of pain in the second half of that game. He didn't run around quite as much as he was. He was grimacing on the bench, grabbing his shoulder. He played the whole game, but they carted him off from the sideline to the back to get his shoulder checked. So don't know what's going on with his shoulder. We'll have to see with the practice reports this week if he's expected to miss any time. But it didn't look good. He was hurting.
That could be major. I mean, if he's limited in any fashion, I feel like it just takes all of his upside away. You know what I mean? Even if he plays, but he plays through this, like part of that is his willingness to run, right? To take off, to scramble, to improvise. And if he's injured, they're going to be trying to protect him a little bit more. And I'm not sure this Bears offense works if they're trying to protect him like that.
Yeah. That honestly is the reason they lost the game, in my opinion. Because he had to pull back, and he was the Justin Fields of the past few weeks. First half of the game, second half it was a muted version. And then two injuries in the late games. Joe Mixon left the game with a concussion, and Jaylen Warren also left the game with a hamstring injury.
Boom. Yeah, Albert in here coming in with the Joe Mixon, also left with a concussion. Yeah, hopefully he's all right. We get him back on the field healthy relatively soon, but always scary watching those head injuries. We had a question in here from Coolster. Coolster wanted to know, how did Barkley have a bad game against the Lions run defense? That is a great question. Coolster, I thought it was a slam dunk play, and I had the same question, so I started looking into it a little bit afterwards. Like this seemed like a slam dunk. Why the hell wasn't it? And that Lions run defense isn't as bad as the statistics make it look whenever you look further into it. They've played some nasty rushing quarterbacks who have really buoyed the numbers of the rushing stats against the Lions.
That's
like, so if you just look at like rushing stats against the Lions, it looks god awful. But really the way to beat this team is through the air. Like they've got Okudah, and then everyone else is just free reign. You can throw it to whoever you want that Okudah isn't covering. But I was shocked, Coolster. I thought for sure this was a slam dunk Saquon game. This seemed like he was just going to run all over the place. We got Scamps in here saying I missed 3 5-leg parlays. One by 3 Monty rush yards, another one by 5 Jonathan Taylor rush yards, and another one by 5 McLaurin receiving yards, respectively. He said, I'm almost awesome at betting. You are so close to being good at betting.
Closest. You're the closest cat that's ever been good at betting.
You're right there. Also, Albert in here coming in. Devontae Adams with the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Looks like the Raiders and Josh McDaniels are going to pull this one out after losing to the Jeff Saturday-led Colts last week. And I think that's a good segue into this game then. The game just ended. The Raiders pulled this one out in overtime, 22-16 today.
This was pretty wild to see the Raiders versus Broncos, which I just lost the entire stat screen. Hold on, give me 1 second. Here we go. This is like the game ended and the thing, like PFF just completely went to a different screen for me. Yeah, so Raiders pulling out the victory in this one. Broncos actually didn't play too bad. This game. Russell Wilson had ended the game with 10.6 fantasy points. Not a great fantasy performance for Russell Wilson, but football performance wasn't bad. 24 completions, 31 attempts. Josh Jacobs had a day. Does his Josh Jacobs thing. 24 carries for 109 yards. Yeah. Josh Jacobs, fantastic. And then Devontae Adams, 13 targets, 7 receptions, 141 yards, 36.1 fantasy points. Devontae Adams is back, boys. Are you guys how you guys feeling about Devontae Adams the rest of the season? How's his playoff schedule look?
He is one of those top tier players. I don't even care what teams he's playing in the playoffs. You just plug in Devontae Adams. He's in there with the Justin Jeffersons, with the Tyreek Hills. He's a top 5 fantasy football wide receiver. And the nice thing about this offense is usually it's the usual suspects that are the fantasy relevant players. It's the Josh Jacobs. It's the Devontae Adams, right? Like Matt Collins could have a big game here and there. Maybe we see some of these other options mixed in. But you can pretty much depend on these top tier fantasy assets that they have. It's pretty top heavy offense for fantasy. And I love that. It makes it so much clearer for us.
So the Raiders have
been in the playoff.
The Raiders have been abysmal, but Devontae Adams still finds a way to get his. So
yeah, in the playoffs, they play New England week 15, which is a pretty tough matchup. Week 16, though, they get Pittsburgh, which, that's what you love to see for a wide receiver. And then middle of the road matchup, week 17 with San Francisco. So, but I'm with Simon. It doesn't matter what the matchups are. Devontae Adams is an automatic play, but
must start.
With a pretty solid week 16, week 17, there's potential there for him to lead to you some fantasy championships.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Collins had a decent game, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 52 yards, 11.2 fantasy points. Filling in for Hunter Renfrow. Who's the other guy that's and Darren Waller, who is out. Matt Collins, he's someone that you guys starting week in, week out, 11.2 fantasy points. Ain't too bad. You expect that next week?
He's a fill-in. He's a startable player on this Raiders offense, but he's not going to be consistent. This offense, like I said, runs through Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, but Matt Collins is talented, and we've seen him have a couple big games this year, right? So I think he's startable, but he's not a player I'm forcing into my lineups.
What about you, Jay?
Simon said everything I would have said.
It was nice to see him have a decent fantasy game without a touchdown, right? for him to just
Right.
put up like with enough volume to have a decent game instead of just that big play touchdown, which is like he is a vertical threat for this team. But
Yeah,
so maybe
got that speed.
maybe a couple more weeks of this, we'll see him become more trustworthy. But for now, he's still just like a bye week fill-in kind of guy for me.
I think he's startable at flex. I think that's right now where he's at. He could work his way into wide receiver 3, back end wide receiver 2 territory.
And the other guy who is probably the only last one that's worth noting on this Raiders side is Foster Moreau, who a lot of people filled in their tight end spot. Yeah, tight end and buy or just flexed in Foster Moreau this week. 3 targets, 1 reception, 33 yards, no touchdowns, 4.3 fantasy points. So that's a stinker. Tight end glob stinker. On the Broncos side of this, Latavius Murray got the majority of the carries here, 17 carries, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Melvin Gordon got 8 carries for 31 yards, no touchdowns. Is this Latavius Murray's backfield now?
I mean, it should be. Like, they got to stop giving Melvin Gordon the ball on the goal line. Dude just keeps coughing it up over and over and over again. And I was the biggest Melvin Gordon fan going into this season. I thought he was a slam dunk draft pick where he was going, but something's off. Dude's lost the step. He doesn't look like the same player anymore, and he keeps coughing the ball up. They're getting lucky that they're recovering most of these that he drops, but like no touchdowns. Dude should have had a touchdown. He got a carry on the 1 yard line, like was in the end zone and then throws the ball away. You can't start Melvin Gordon. It's Latavius Murray if you're starting any of these backs, but you're not happy about starting.
Honestly, I don't even really want to start Latavius Murray. 2.9 yards per carry. The only reason he got that touchdown is because Kendall Hinton just barely stepped out on the one on a long pass on the first drive from Russell Wilson. I'm really avoiding this Denver backfield at all costs.
They got a decent amount of receiving work. 4 targets for Latavius Murray, 5 targets for Melvin Gordon. And 17.2 to 12 point fantasy point performances respectively from Murray and Melvin Gordon. That's pretty decent. It's a pretty decent fantasy performance. We'll have to see if it continues. If Latavius Murray continues to be the guy. I think Cortland Sutton had a pretty stinker game. It was a mediocre game. It was like a perfect Cortland Sutton game. 5 receptions on 7 targets, 80 yards, no touchdowns for 13 points. Just being exactly what he's been all year, which is all right.
It was a stinker for what you thought this game should have been against the Raiders without Jerry Jeudy. Right. Like without Jerry Jeudy against the Raiders, this should have been a slam dunk Cortland Sutton game, and it just wasn't. It was fine. It was absolutely fine. I did want to say before we move on from this game, so Clint Kubiak took over play calling for the Broncos, and it did look like it made a positive difference for this offense. So I don't know what the hell Nathaniel Hackett's job is anymore. Like if he's not handling clock management, if he's not calling plays, but maybe they just need him there standing on the sideline and let everyone else do everything. Because it worked out. This team looked better than they have looked in recent weeks offensively.
Just the play calling, like that first drive especially, like I wonder what would have happened in this game if that long touchdown would have counted. I feel like that would have got Russell Wilson in the right mindset. But yeah, I'm with you completely. This looked like a different team. And I am excited for, Russell Wilson hopefully playing a little better down the stretch.
Also, Coolster in here saying another week, another disappointing Greg Dulcich game, or really, it's another bad Wilson game. Wilson was fine enough in this week, but it was a disappointing performance from Greg Dulcich. He's reminding us he's still in that glob, the tight end glob, the guys that are probably going to get you 5 fantasy points, but if they get a touchdown, you're pretty happy. But he's one of the ones I like in that glob the most just because of the volume that he generally gets. Maria said, is it just me or does the backwards hat make Jay look younger? Jay, it takes 10 years off. Yeah, you look 40.
You're lucky I love you, son. Not all depressed about having my birthday this week or anything either. So thanks a lot.
And then Scamper said, are you telling me that Jay isn't 22 years old? Jay, can you confirm or deny?
Let's just say it's over. I'm not going to go and you wouldn't go way over like in poll perception, but it's over. It's
the oldest 22 you've ever seen.
We got Slick Vic in the chat. What's up, Slick Vic? Welcome in. Glad to have you in here.
Shout out to Mom. It was their 42nd wedding anniversary yesterday. So happy anniversary, Mom and Dad.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
What an incredible achievement.
I think 42. Maybe. I hope I'm not wrong. Sorry, Mom.
One of those numbers.
Almost as old as you.
The next game I wanted to talk about was this Dallas Cowboys Minnesota Vikings not technically over yet game, but this one's been over since just about halftime. The Cowboys are up 40-3 in this one. I guess let's start on the Cowboys side of the ball because there's not much to talk about on the Minnesota side. But Dak Prescott, 22 for 25, 276 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cooper Rush has come into this game. Of course, it's because I dropped him today in fantasy. And now look at this. He's got 31 passing yards, and I look like an idiot for dropping
Those are the
him.
worst. Just when you drop a guy that goes off, it just hurts your soul.
I know. Yeah. I just can't believe I did that. But Dak Prescott looking pretty hot in this one. Looked like he's going to help fantasy managers to a victory. John Luke, Dak was injured earlier in this year, as we know, came back. Do you think he is in that like top 5 quarterback conversation rest of season?
Well, let's lay him out. We got Josh Allen. We got Patrick Mahomes. We got Herbert. We got Jalen Hurts at this point. Put Jalen Hurts above Dak. We got Lamar. Put him above Dak. So no, not top 5.
I mean, but all of those guys you think are clearly above him rest of season? Every single one of those names?
Oh, rest of season. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Justin Herbert isn't. Ooh, I don't know.
Don't get me wrong, I love Lamar Jackson. I got his jersey right over here, but he's not been that Lamar Jackson in the first couple weeks. I don't know if you can automatically put him in the top 5 right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Rest of the season, I was answering based off just in general for going into next season, but I think that you can make an argument that if you want Dak over Lamar, that's fine. I'm still taking Lamar over Dak for the rushing.
And I am too, even though I just argued the exact opposite. But just say Lamar has kind of tapered off from the hot start that he had this season.
But he's on that line, I think, is the point of what I was getting at here. Like Dak is in that conversation to be one of those top tier guys. And I wouldn't be shocked at the end of the season if we see this Cowboys offense keep rolling and Dak's a top 5 quarterback down the way. He's got the skill set to do it, and he's got a healthy offense as well now. The real star of this show was running back Tony Pollard, 15 carries for 80 yards, but did some real damage in the receiving game. 6 targets, 6 receptions, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns, making him the top scoring running back on the week so far, unless Samaje Perine just passed him with that 3rd touchdown that he scored. Jay, do you think Tony Pollard is going to take over this backfield, or are we going to yet again have this conversation again next week that Jerry Jones will not let it happen with Zeke?
I think you just said exactly what's going to happen. It's Jerry Jones. He's going to come out and say, I think Tony Pollard could have came out, threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns, and caught 2 touchdowns. And Jerry Jones would say, Dallas Cowboys go as Zeke goes, because that's just Jerry Jones, him and his salty egg McMuffins. There's no doubt. I mean, anybody who's watched a Cowboys game this year when they're both on the field, that Tony Pollard is the best Dallas running back in a number of ways. D. Thomas said it perfectly. He's the best offensive threat that the Cowboys have. I love CeeDee Lamb, but he hasn't lived up to those lofty expectations when Tony Pollard has. I think that it's going to be all lip service, though. I think that the Cowboys know if they want to make a run, if they want to make the playoffs and go deep in the playoffs, it's got to be through Tony Pollard. Zeke is just at that end. He's had so many miles on those legs. It's just he's not the player that he once was, and Tony Pollard is in the prime of his career, and man, does he look good.
Well, we also have to look at the fact that Ezekiel Elliott is coming off of injury into this game. So it's not like both players are healthy and everything is all considered equal. So there is, I still think that there's going to be the split 15 carries each perfectly down the center. Like that just is more evidence for this, right? That it's not going to switch to Pollard, despite how we want just because he has, he's running better with each run. Here's the thing. Why would the Cowboys just solely put all of the work in Pollard's hands if they're making a playoff run, right? Why wouldn't they use the asset that they have with Zeke? It doesn't make sense to give all of that work to Pollard and then have him sputter out. And then what are you left with, right? Just Zeke in the playoffs. This team's 7-3 now. That's awesome.
If I'm going to make that argument with Elijah Mitchell and CMC, which I am, I'm going to make that argument over and over again. And I think they're going to use Elijah Mitchell because they're a playoff team looking to compete for a Super Bowl. They want to keep both backs healthy. These backs are so much closer than Mitchell and CMC are, Pollard and Zeke. Of course, they're going to split it. I'm with you, JL.
They don't run NFL teams like fantasy teams. Like there's this disconnect there, right? And I think a lot of fantasy managers think that Pollard's doing better. He's getting more points. Why did they put him in?
Except sometimes NFL teams do, and then we
Sometimes they
celebrate
do.
because it's so much easier to
And then
figure
it's
out what's going on.
Yes, you're right.
I brought up Pollard, but Zeke had himself a pretty good game as well. 15 carries, 42 yards. He wasn't wildly efficient, but he got 2 touchdowns as well. Added a reception for 5 yards. So, Joe, to your point, you can start both of these guys week in, week out, I think. The Dallas Cowboys have a plethora of fantasy relevant options that you can throw into your lineup. On the Vikings side of the ball, Jay, anything to add? Jay? I think that's about all I've got to add as well. There's really not much I'm taking from this game for a fantasy perspective. When you get down this big, it changes the entire flow of the game. And it's difficult to take away like takeaways that are going to apply in the future weeks, right? Because Minnesota's not going to be down 20-3 at halftime every week.
But what happened?
I don't know. Jay, what happened to the Vikings today? What happened?
It's Kirk Cousins didn't play at 1 p.m. That's pretty much the only explanation that I have, because this team has looked phenomenal up until this point and in prime time. I don't get it.
You think they just like someone messed with the clocks in the locker room, and as he was going on the field, he looked up and it said 8 p.m. and he was like, "Oh shit!"
Oh no!
You know what it was? It was the memo that the NFL sent out that players aren't allowed to drink on the flights back, and they were like, you know what? If we can't party and put our chains on Kirk Cousins and Bush Latte, and it's no, ain't gonna do it. Ain't gonna show up. It's not worth it.
The no fun league saying no drinking on airplanes. That's what airplanes are for, right?
Yeah.
Is drinking on.
Have you ever been on an airplane?
Grown men or anything like that over the age of 21. How dare they drink after a game?
Yeah, those hooligans. That's ridiculous that the NFL's making that rule. Kirk Cousins deserves to be pissed at them. But this was a brutal game for the Vikings. Hopefully they bounce back. I still think this is a good team, but when you get in a hole that big, it's tough to recover. It is tough to recover. We had a question in here, guys, before we move on to our next game. Lamb Cup wanted to know, should I trade Swift away for Mike Evans? JL, would you be making this move?
I would be okay with it. It's close in terms of value. This would be a team-dependent move. So if you need a wide receiver and this trade makes your team better, then I'm about it. Yeah.
I like Mike Evans rest of season better than DeAndre Swift rest of season, so I'll take Mike Evans. Jay, what about you?
Yeah, if you would have asked me this question a few weeks ago, even with DeAndre Swift on the shelf, I would have said hang on to him, because when he's fully healthy, I think he's one of a handful of running backs that can be considered as the RB1 overall. Now, obviously, he would be a dark horse, but I think he's got the talent and the skill set to do it. But, man, I don't know if he's just not fully healthy or if they're just not wanting to run him into the ground like you guys were talking about. Obviously, the Lions aren't going to make a playoff run, but they're looking long-term. And he's just not getting the work. There was even talk he was upset with how much work he was getting, and I believe he only had like 5 carries today. So I think you make this move, depending on your team. As long as you're not running back needy, I think this is a great move.
Absolutely. Guys, let's go ahead and move on to our next game. The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bengals currently are up 37-23 in this one, but there's about 2 minutes left. We're about to hit that 2-minute warning here.
Yeah, Joe Burrow, even without Jamar Chase, has looked pretty good, especially today. I think, Samaje Perine just stepped in for Jamar Chase as the wide receiver threat on this offense. 3 touchdowns for Samaje Perine today on 4 catches, 52 yards, and he was even getting some work before Joe Mixon left this game with a concussion. So 11 carries, 30 rushes. You have to like what you've seen from Samaje Perine. JL, with not knowing the situation with Joe Mixon, let's say Joe Mixon is going to miss at least 1 game. Is Samaje Perine the top pickup for this week?
Yeah, probably. The Bengals, that Bengals offense being the prime running back on that team is very nice. That's a great opportunity. Behind him, Travion Williams. It's clearly Samaje Perine is the next guy up, and he's good enough. We've seen him play throughout the years. He's had like at least 3 to 5 years of his career. Probably more than 3. I think 5. 5 sounds right. And he's been decent. Nothing crazy, but decent. So yeah, he'd probably be the number 1 pickup.
The number of times I've drafted Samaje Perine. And been
Oh
like,
my God.
this is the year.
That dude's been on my team so many times, and
And I
then quickly off.
Exactly. I have dropped him in week 2 so many times, Samaje Perine. But
fantasy team slut.
He got those touchdowns today, though. I saw Mr. Scampers in here earlier, if I can find it, saying, and this is why I still have Samaje Perine on my dynasty rosters. Just been holding on to Samaje Perine.
That is a relatable message.
Here we go. This is why I still have Perine on my dynasty teams. And sometimes you just can't give up.
I wonder if I think I might have had to start him in one league. I'll have to double check about that. And one that I was telling you I was tanking. I just have to find somebody with a pulse that's on the field. But T. Higgins has looked like the number one wide receiver. We knew he could be on any other team if he didn't have Jamar Chase on the team with him. 9 receptions, 140-something yards, no touchdowns. He did leave the game briefly. He came down pretty hard on his hip. It looked a little scary because he screamed out in pain, but he was able to return to this game. Joe Burrow, they're talking that Jamar Chase is going to be able to potentially come back this week. You can't say enough good things about Joe Burrow. Whatever it's, not having Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon leaving this game, he's just looked really, really good. The offensive line is finally starting to gel. There was some concern that all these big moves that they made in the offseason weren't paying off. Well, it takes an offensive line some time to work together and, become one unit. He's looked great. On the other side of the ball, Kenny Pickett. I like that, Mr. Scampers, accidentally adding LaMichael Pirine.
Oh, no.
You know what?
Wrong Pirine.
Yeah. Just like, what was it? Who was it on the Panthers that there was another, was it Moore or who was it?
There was multiple Moores. There was a DJ Moore and a David Moore, right?
Both David Moore, that's right. Yep. Yeah, that happened last year. But Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris, getting the work, looking really good. JL, I saw the tweet you sent out that his cleats were moon shoes. That. Nice. Yeah, that was I like that one.
There's always a couple plays where I just like gasp, like in the middle of it. Maria's like, what? I'm like, look at this. And that was one of them. I was like, oh,
it was awesome.
He is one of the players who will take any opportunity to get airborne.
To hurt him.
It doesn't matter if it's a hurt
or whatever. Thinking about it. You knew that he was already doing it, Simon.
It is the top thought in his mind is like,
it felt so unnecessary. He jumped unnecessarily high for it too. Like it was like more theatrical than it needed to be. And you could tell that he was just going into it as he was running up to the guy. You're right. You nailed that, Simon.
He's so much fun to watch.
Scorebot just said the Steelers just scored again. So
it did. Najee Harris, let's go.
Najee Harris, another one. So
he jumped over the pile.
He did. Of course he did.
Another airborne touchdown for Najee.
I love him.
He's looked good, guys. Very simply, is Najee back as a every week low end RB1?
I'm still viewing him as like an RB2. Like Najee Harris, I know he had a great game today, but I want to see more of it. And I think RB2 is not an insult, right? Like he's a high-end RB2. There's a lot of good running backs. This Steelers team is not good. I know they put up 30 points here today. That offensive line is bad. This efficiency is something that we generally don't see from Najee Harris. Last year, this year, like him running at over 4 yards a clip, 4.5 yards a rush attempt is not what we expect from Najee Harris, especially behind this O-line this year. So he's still a high-end RB2 for me. But he moved maybe from that back-end RB2 up to that high-end RB2 range.
I think there's a distinction here that's been bothering me about Najee Harris all season, where people are like talking about Najee as if he's not a good running back. And that's like, it doesn't quite, there's like some cognitive dissonance with me because I'm like, I don't think it's the fact that it's his talent at all. I think this is a combination of injury. I think it's a combination of situation and circumstance that has kept him limited here. But if he's healthy and he's back, going into next season, I'm going to be drafting him, I feel like, a lot higher than most people because I'm not going to be expecting this type of performance again. And last year, he didn't have a good offensive line either.
Nope.
I think you put him in a situation like Jonathan Taylor's situation, what Najee would be running over probably 4 yards a carry every game, right? Like I think he would be incredible. So I think there's a distinction there. This season, I don't know that they're going to really turn it around, right? And I think that's I agree with you there, Simon. Like rest of the season, he's probably going to be more of an RB2 level.
I'm with you, fully with you. And I will say, like, we've never drafted Najee Harris because of his efficiency. You know what I mean? No one was drafting Najee Harris this year and saying it's because he runs 4.5 yards carry. It's because of the volume. It's because he's the dude and he's going to get that work. It was nice to see him get that work today.
Right?
And the talent. Right. Yeah. It's the volume and talent, but he's not an efficient runner, not behind the Steelers offensive line.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, JL. I think he was more injured than he let on at the beginning of this year.
He did. Yeah, absolutely.
That definitely, he did not look good when he had, they just randomly mentioned, oh yeah, I have a steel plate in my cleat. Like, give me a break. Like, that would have been nice if you would have told us that a little sooner. But you do have to be encouraged by the usage in the passing game as well. That is where he really put up his stats last year. 4 catches for 26 yards. So it's you have to like that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure his opponents would have liked if he mentioned that earlier too.
Yeah, without a doubt.
You flabbergasted him with him on that.
I know. Like,
he was like, his opponents? What's an opponent? He has enemies? Who are Najee Harris's enemies? I will annihilate them, is what was going on in his
He's
head.
like, oh, wait.
Football opponent.
He meant a football opponent. It's okay.
You meant like the Ravens.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Not his mortal enemy coming to battle him. Before we move on to this next game, we had a question in here from Steven. Steven said, hey guys, what's up, Steven? Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. It's a late week decision. Are you taking Rondale Moore or Mike Williams? JL, I want to throw this one to you first. So Rondale Moore playing in Mexico City tomorrow night with potentially Colt McCoy and potentially Marquise Hollywood Brown coming back, right? I don't know if we've gotten an update on whether or not
he's been declared out.
Declared
Hollywood will
out.
not be playing tomorrow.
Okay, so without Hollywood, so that might make this decision a little bit easier. JL, are you rolling Mike Williams out tonight in this Chiefs-Chargers shootout, or are you rolling out Rondale Moore?
This is tough. I'm going to lean Mike Williams. I'm going to lean Mike Williams here because I think the upside is higher for him. I think he is far more talented than Rondale Moore. The injury is a little concerning for Mike Williams that he might be hindered here, but he seems ready to go. And so he's the type player. I want to start him if he's healthy. In this game where they're going against they're going against Kansas City, I expect to be high scoring, so I think they're going to have to lean on the pass game. And who else are they going to throw to, Simon?
I will kill you if you say that ever again. Steven here.
Greg Everett? Who knows?
They're going to throw it to Greg the entire
Greg
game.
Everett.
Yeah, someone this morning asked us about Greg Everett, and I was like, that's a better
Starter
name than Gerald.
Oscar Moreau or Greg Everett? I'm like,
Greg.
Who the heck is Greg Everett?
Get Greg's ass in there right now.
Immediately.
Steven in here, Jail, to your point, I think they need upside. Said they're down 10 points. They have Eckler in a flex spot left, but they're going against Christian McCaffrey and James Conner, already down 10. I think in this situation, you got to roll Mike Williams. He has the higher upside. It's in a game that's expected to be higher scoring. I'm rolling that way. Jay, you agree?
Yeah. Honestly, it's not a question for me, especially with Colt McCoy likely to be under center for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeehaw! Guys, we are going to move on to our first 1 p.m. game here. And Jeff Saturday and the Indianapolis Colts almost did the unthinkable in knocking out the Philadelphia Eagles, but Jalen Hurts pulled that victory out. 17-16, Eagles win this one.
Yes, he did. The under hit total was 45.5 points. Indianapolis did cover here, even though the Eagles won. It's probably not a great betting game. I don't think this went how most people were expecting. Jalen Hurts, 25.2. Jalen Hurts put this team on his back. Like he's the reason they won this game. He was fantastic. 25.2 fantasy points, 18 completions, 25 attempts, 190 yards, and a touchdown. I believe he also had a rushing touchdown, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, he did.
He did. Yeah, 16 attempts, 86 rushing yards, and a touchdown from Jalen Hurts.
Rushing touchdown at the very end.
That is absolutely correct. Game-winning touchdown from Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is fantastic. You're starting him every week in, week out. Going into next season, where are you guys drafting Jalen Hurts? Where does he fit in that top? I'm guessing it's the top tier, right? Top 5. Where in that top 5, though?
I think the names ahead of him are very limited. Like, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Josh Allen, and then I think the conversation begins. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can make the argument against Justin Herbert, against Kyler Murray, against Lamar Jackson for Jalen Hurts. And so I think anywhere from 3 to 5 is where we're going to be looking at Jalen Hurts next year. And I wouldn't fault someone if they put him at 1 or 2. Know what I mean? Like, I think with his rushing ability, Jalen Hurts, if someone has him ranked as their top quarterback next year, I'm not batting an eyelash. I won't have him there. I'll have Mahomes and Allen ahead of him, barring something crazy happening this offseason. But he's up there. He's a top 3 caliber guy, I think, for fantasy with that rushing ability.
Yeah. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I think that's the threshold. I think that Allen and Mahomes are a tier above, and don't tell Dustin in the chat, but I would actually put Mahomes above Allen right now. But yeah, I would not argue with somebody if they wanted to go with Jalen Hurts over either one of those guys. The one thing I will say is, you said, where are we drafting him and where does he land? Now, that's 2 different things for me because, yes, he's one of those top-tier quarterbacks, but especially in 1 QB leagues, I'm probably going to fade him in 1 QB leagues because you look at what happened with Lamar Jackson after his magical 2019 season. He was getting drafted super high, and the only way he was going to return that value was if he put up another season like that. So you have to be careful when you draft guys at their ceiling. The reason in 2019 Lamar Jackson was a league winner, the reason Jalen Hurts is potentially a league winner this year is you didn't have to buy the risk. So just be careful drafting these guys next year, especially 1 QB leagues.
Man,
That's
but it does help with that a little bit. When, like, I know it happened to Lamar Jackson as well, but it takes away some of the when they have that rushing ability, right? Like, it provides a nice floor where even if like everything falls out from underneath them, you have a pretty safe floor with Jalen Hurts that he's going to be serviceable for fantasy. Same for Lamar. Even when Lamar's off, you're never like too upset you started Lamar. He usually gets you at least 15, like even in a bad game. Whereas like you get a bad game from some of these non-mobile quarterbacks, you're looking at 5 to 12 points, right? That's not so much in the range of outcome for these guys.
That's been Russell Wilson all year long.
It's been Russell Wilson all year long.
Who has been a rushing QB historically, right? Like that's been his
scrambler, right?
Scrambler, yeah. Not quite the same as Lamar, but I mean, before those guys, like he was considered definitely one of the top rushing ones.
Yeah, as a mobile QB.
Miles Sanders had a poo-poo game. All the running backs did. Jalen Hurts ran for 39 more yards than Miles Sanders this game here. 13 carries, 47 yards, 5.8 fantasy points. You're disappointed if you started Miles Sanders. It's probably just the game. What do you guys think? What was the reason?
I mean, I thought he was a slam dunk play because I expected the Eagles to be up big and to just run the clock out with Miles Sanders for this to be a pretty run-heavy game. I mean, he got work. He got 13 carries, but Jalen, it's what you said. Jalen Hurts took this game over. They were not winning. Things weren't working, and Jalen Hurts said, all right, I got this, guys. Like this is on me. I'm going to pull this game out for everyone, and he did it, and there just wasn't room for Miles Sanders to find success when Jalen Hurts put this game on his back. And it was the right play.
Bright, Jalen Hurts.
Shine too bright, Jalen Hurts. Keep on doing it, though. Sorry, Miles. I'm on Jalen's team.
I'd say this is an opportunity to potentially buy low on Miles Sanders. Well, 2 disappointing games back to back, like Simon said. He's getting the volume. 13 carries last week, 12 carries the week before, 17 carries the week prior. So he's definitely still involved, and it's just he hasn't been getting the touchdowns. The team rushes the ball a ton. I think he's somebody you could find a frustrated Miles Sanders manager who thinks, oh, here we go. This is the old Miles Sanders, and possibly get him on the cheap.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's an interesting thought in that the Eagles team is so good that having Miles Sanders rest of the season is not a bad idea. I'm with you, Jay. If you can capitalize on it, make it happen.
Slime.
AJ Brown AJ Brown really just got hyper targeted in this game. That's the wrong word to use. Hyper targeted by the defense is what I meant to say. Like they focused on AJ Brown and they were able to mostly shut him down. Devontae Smith was the main guy in that offense today. 9 targets, 6 receptions, 78 yards, no touchdowns for Devontae Smith. 13.8 fantasy points. AJ Brown finished with 10 on 7 targets, 5 receptions, 60 yards, and no touchdowns as well. Not much to talk about there. AJ Brown still wide receiver 1. This is more of a game situation. On the Colts side, Matt Ryan, poo-poo, as usual, 8.62 fantasy points. But in terms of NFL football, like he competed with one of the best teams in the league. So I guess you have to give that to old Matt Ryan.
He was fine.
Old Matt Ryan.
He was fine. Not for fantasy, but for football, he was totally fine.
Yeah. He's not that old. Like in real life. Like football, he's old, but in real life, he's not that old.
What's weird is we're talking about
Was that what I
football,
was saying?
though.
Yeah. I was like,
I just wanted to throw
you're
that
right,
out there.
but-
Like, he's not that old. How old
Wasn't-
is Matt Ryan?
Just like 40 is clearly middle-aged, guys. Like not even old. I don't know what you're talking. We always say old, and like these are.
He's
like,
only
come on.
37. He's got his whole life ahead of him. He's a young buck.
He's a spring chicken.
And Michael Pittman had a pretty decent game, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 13.5 fantasy points. Paris Campbell had 11.7. Another good game for Paris Campbell. But this is about what you expect. I don't think there's much really to distinguish there. This is a decent game for both of these guys. Yeah.
Play these guys. When Matt Ryan's the quarterback, both of them are startable. Like I know this was a tough matchup for Michael Pittman, but Matt Ryan can get the ball to his receivers. Before he was benched, he was like top 3 in passing yards for quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like I know he wasn't looking good, but he gets the ball around to his receivers, and that makes them startable. So I think you can plug both those guys in every single week, even though this Colts team is a bit of a mess.
With you, Simon.
Absolutely. Before we move on to our next one, we had some questions, guys. Brandon in here said thoughts on giving up Stephon Diggs and Kareem Hunt for Keenan Allen and Jonathan Taylor. John Luke, would you be making this trade? Give up Stephon Diggs and Kareem Hunt, receive Keenan Allen and Jonathan Taylor back?
No, because I don't know. I guess you could if your team is if this balances out your team better, then you can make this trade. I wouldn't make the trade. I would probably just stick with Diggs and Hunt between the two of them, just because I don't know. I don't know how Taylor is going to do rest of the season. More importantly, I'm not super confident that Keenan Allen will be able to stay on the field.
I think I'm taking this one. I think Taylor is a big enough upgrade over Hunt, and we saw what he did last week. Like looked like some vintage Jonathan Taylor. He got 22 carries again this week. Like it seems like that's how Jeff Saturday wants to run this offense, is 20 plus carries for Jonathan Taylor every single week. And if he's going to get that volume, I want him on my team. And Keenan Allen is a good wide receiver. I'm nervous about the injury, but I'll take that value on JT. What about you, Jay?
First off, just that sentence that you just said, Jeff Saturday's offense, that still just feels absolutely absurd to me, that Jeff Saturday is making offensive decisions for an NFL football team. But yeah, you know what? My first thoughts was there's no way I'm giving up Diggs, but Hunt has not been good this year at all. Honestly, for me, I throw him out of this equation. It's Diggs for Keenan Allen and Taylor. And I think it's worth it. I think, it depends on your team. It depends what your wide receiver room looks, because if, Keenan Allen does get banged up and misses some games, are you throwing Donovan Peoples-Jones out there? Like, are you stuck with, guys that you're hoping for a good matchup? Then I might stick with Diggs, but Keenan Allen has the potential to be a back-end wide receiver 1, and Jonathan Taylor has the potential to be the RB1 period. So I think it's as long as your team can handle it depth-wise, I think it's a move to make.
Kareem Hunt is an RB3 currently in PPR, RB29. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 30s, 136. So checkmate, atheist.
Checkmate, atheist. Take that to the bank. Soft Balzac has a question in here. Wants to know, should I start Keenan Allen, who plays tonight, or Rondale Moore tomorrow? So, Jay, what would you say to our friend Soft Balzac?
I'd say how soft.
And who would you start?
And also, who should I start? Between Rondale Moore and Keenan Allen, I'm gonna go Rondale Moore. Keenan Allen's too much risk. Too much risk this week. Go Rondale Moore. Take advantage of the fact that he's gonna have opportunity to play this week.
That line lives somewhere between Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on like where the Rondale Moore start is. If you got Mike Williams, plug him in. If it's Keenan Allen, I'm going with Rondale Moore. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I'm going to go Rondale Moore. It's just if Keenan Allen was playing a full set of snaps, it'd be no question. But even with Colt McCoy, if he's under center, Rondale Moore is the call.
Albert wants to know Miles Sanders or Jeff Wilson rest of season. So this is a spicy question. Jay, if you have to pick between these two backs, which one are you rolling with rest of the season?
I'm going Jeff Wilson. I've said it since he wound up in Miami and looked, the usage that he got that first week. I think Jeff Wilson is locked in as a high-end RB2 and potentially elite winner.
Dale, where would you be rolling on this one?
Oh boy, I'll go Miles Sanders. Go Miles Sanders. I love Jeff Wilson too. I've been very hyped on him. But yeah, I have Miles Sanders in the Eagles offense. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, I'm with you. We got TS in here. Said sit one in PPR. Mike Williams, Brandon Ayuk, and Kadarius Toney. They are currently tied with their opponent. So one of these players has to hit the bench. JL, which one of these three players would you be benching?
Kadarius Toney, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Williams. Oh, I'm playing Ayuk. I'm playing Ayuk out of here. And then so it comes between Mike Williams and Toney. And I'm gonna go. That one's impossible to choose. I'm gonna go Mike Williams. Did we answer that earlier? I can't remember.
I do not think so. Jay, who are you benching here?
I think I'm gonna bench Toney. I think Ayuk is definitely the lock. You know, while I'm excited to see what Toney could do, it's too much of a risk being tied. You know, if you were down and needed the upside, I think Toney's the play. But I think Mike Williams offers that floor as well as a pretty decent upside in what could potentially be a shootout. You know, that would work for Toney as well. But, you know, I could see this being a game that, you know, MVS gets a long touchdown and Patrick Mahomes just locks in on Travis Kelce. So I think there's a little more risk with Toney. I would rather go with Mike Williams.
Yeah, I think I'm rolling Toney onto the bench here, unfortunately. I want to play Toney if I can, but you've got two great options outside of that, TS. So I would roll with Toney on the bench because we're going to move on to our next game here. The Atlanta Falcons pulling out a victory against the Chicago Bears, 27-24 in this game.
Yeah, and like I said, the first half of this game, Justin Fields looked absolutely phenomenal. He looked as good as he has the past, 5-6 weeks. The Chicago Bears led the game in time of possession, 35 minutes to 24, had 66 plays to the 53 for the Falcons. Honestly, I think the injury to his shoulder cost the Bears this game. Unfortunately, he had a good passing game. Although he only passed the ball 21 times, he had 153 yards and a touchdown. He had a interception that I think had to do with the injury as well. It did not look good. I'm really concerned for Justin Fields if this is something that's going to linger. He obviously does what he does on the ground. He didn't break 100 yards, but you will definitely take 85 yards and a touchdown. Justin Fields is in. He's locked and loaded. Every week start potential. I mean, he's in the conversation for a top 5 QB as long as he's healthy and on the field. One guy I was excited to see without Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery had a really good game as well, and he got a little more action later in the game with Justin Fields hesitating to run a little bit because of the injury. 17 carries, 67 yards. Did also throw in a rushing touchdown, and I believe he had some usage in the passing game as well, if I could get my notes to scroll down. 4 targets, 3 catches, 54 yards. So you really have to be excited. He was a top 5 running back on the week. Is without Khalil Herbert, is David Montgomery an RB1 for the rest of the season?
Yes. I think he is on volume alone, and this is one of the most run-heavy offenses in the league. David Montgomery is a great back. And when he gets the volume, that's what he does. He puts up RB1 numbers. So I think he's an RB1 rest of the season.
Yeah, currently he's Khalil Herbert has been obviously there for the first half of the season. Currently he's the RB32 in half PPR. This team's running a lot. I don't know if I put him in top 12, but I think he's sniffing it. I think he's sniffing it for sure.
Sniffing it a little bit. Yeah, I'm with you. I lean, while I like him, I actually just traded for him in my home league. I think the potential is there, but not ready to put him there yet. I think high-end RB2. But, if they decide to pull back Justin Fields running a little bit, try to keep him healthy, maybe you do see David Montgomery get a little more work. There was some talk of the rookie Tristan Ebner getting some work, and they worked him in a little bit, but 6 carries. He's not, it's not like Khalil Herbert where it was almost a 50-50 split. Nothing you really have to worry about from Montgomery's workload. Through the air, Darnell Mooney came down with another touchdown. 5 targets, 4 catches, 29 yards. Not really a whole lot to write home about, but he's really pretty much locked in as a wide receiver 3 for me rest of the season. Simon, I know you were very high on Darnell Mooney coming into the season. What's your outlook for him the rest of the season?
Not what it was at the beginning of the season, but better than it was the first 3 weeks, is about where we got him. I think he's a high-end wide receiver 3, back-end wide receiver 2. This offense doesn't pass enough for me to just put him in that like every week RB or wide receiver 2 category, but he's fantastic. And Justin Fields likes getting him the ball. He makes plays when he's supposed to, and he's the top target on this team. Like he should be week in, week out. It's just not enough volume to make him consistently a wide receiver 2.
I don't know why. Make plays like he's supposed to is hilarious to me.
Well, that's what you got to do, right? It's do what's put in front of you. You can only do so much with what's put in front of you. Darnell Mooney's only going to get 5 targets a week because this is a small little pizza pie passing.
Little tiny little baby pizza.
Yeah, it's even smaller than the personal pan pizza. It's like this is from a Lunchable sized pizza right here, and Darnell Mooney's got a pretty big chunk of it, but it's still not enough to make him consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Cole Kmet, there's been some excitement with the way that he's, scored 4 touchdowns in the previous 2 games, but I think he's firmly in the glob. He's in the higher echelon of the glob because he has that touchdown capability. But like you said, they just don't pass the ball enough. And you're going to have these games, these 3 for 35s. And if he, one of those touchdowns last week was a 55-yard bomb, which you're not going to see from Cole Kmet that often. It's not like he's a burner or anything like that. Is he somebody you guys are comfortable starting every week?
I mean, comfortable? Yeah. He's a tight end who can get 2 touchdowns.
Comfortable saying that side.
Well, no, it's like I don't want to give people this false confidence or like this belief that Cole Kmet's an every week superstar. So that's why there was hesitancy in what I was saying. He's a tight end in a low passing volume offense that you're hoping gets a touchdown, right? He's probably going to be 4 or 5 targets. We've seen him get up there in the 7-8 range, but that's not guaranteed every single week the way this offense runs. He's good. He's talented, and he does what he's supposed to with the targets that are thrown his way usually.
Again, tiny baby pizza pie.
I was exactly. The Lunchable is just so little. Like, it's just so little. Nobody's full. So you're going to get weeks like this. You're going to get stinker weeks from Cole Kmet, and that's okay. That's the tight end game here. That's how, like, it's not Travis Kelce. It's not Mark Andrews. You can plug in Cole Kmet, but be willing to accept games like this.
I just have to say, Lunchables are absolutely disgusting. My children love them. They're awful. They're
not made for you, so get over yourself.
Well, even when they were made for me, was that another old joke, Simon? Never mind. Chase Claypool, there was some hope getting out of Pittsburgh would do something for his fantasy relevance. Not happening this year. With this low passing volume, he's droppable in all leagues. If you haven't dropped him, do you guys disagree? Not in Dynasty, in redraft leagues. He's droppable.
How many times do I have to bring up this damn Lunchable, Jay, before you get the picture? It's too small. It's too small for everyone to eat. I'm with you. Chase Claypool can be dropped. It's just like itty bitty this big. It's so small.
I don't know that you need to drop Chase Claypool, but I think he can be dropped for sure.
Right. I think he's droppable.
You're not going to bring up Treston Ebner with his 1 target.
Are you guys comfortable starting him every week?
Are you guys comfortable starting Treston Ebner every week? Or?
Absolutely. Beyond 100%. Comfortable. He's really small, so he doesn't need much of a pizza.
My father and my future child.
That actually fits him perfectly. Like he's not hungry after he eats one of those.
He gets like the tiny little crumb in the corner of Darnell Mooney's mouth.
He just eats the pie cheese. He just puts all the cheese in his mouth. That's all he does. On the Atlanta side of the ball, first off, Simon, I know he's your boy. Congratulations to Cordero Patterson. He broke the NFL record for kickoff returns for a touchdown with his 9th. And Simon, you and I were talking about this before we started.
I knew it was coming. I just had, I was looking at the way he was standing back there. Jay, you were saying the announcers were talking. Oh, he just fumbled the ball. He's standing back there. And he, you could tell when that ball was kicked off, no matter what, he was returning it. And just his pose, there was just this confidence. I was like, oh, he's taking this to the house. Without a doubt, CPAT is weaving through this defense, and he did. That was my favorite moment of the week, I think, because I was sitting there expecting it, and then it happened. And that never happens with punt returns. But shout out CP. That was really fun to watch.
Kickoff return.
Kickoff return. Sorry. And
to clarify for the record.
Yeah, you're right. I don't want to get any of the Hester fans mad out there for the kickoff and punt return record. This is just the kickoff return record, but
just the kickoff.
Shout out.
How
CP.
many times in that game did they say you would think Devin Hester would be second, but this is just kickoffs. It's not including punt returns. I watched a good chunk of this game, and they said it at least 6 times, maybe 16.
Over and over
again. From a fantasy perspective, Not great, Bob. Yes, he did have 10 carries for 52 yards, chipped in a couple catches, but it's not what you would have hoped based on how he looked earlier this year and how he looked at the beginning of last year. Tyler Algier got worked in. Marcus Mariota had 13 carries and rushed for a touchdown as well. Cordell Patterson, is he anything more than RB2? Back end RB2?
I'm not even sure he's an RB2. I think he's startable, but I think he's RB3, RB2 range. He's just not getting enough work, I think, weekly. And I think we could continue to see the shift move towards Algier and away from Patterson down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree with Simon. I think it'll be a split here, and I don't know that I want any part of that.
All right, let me ask you guys. Next week they play a tough Pittsburgh defense against the run. Are you starting Cordero Patterson?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm okay starting Cordero Patterson then.
He's a flex play. And he's a flex
3 touchdowns in a week.
Yeah. So I'm comfortable starting him, but it's not like with RB1 confidence. It's with flex value RB3 confidence.
Yeah. And as we talked about earlier, Kyle Pitts went down with an injury. Don't have any word. I have not seen any updates, but it did not look good. Potentially be out for a decent amount of time. Drake London, it looked good early. He got a touchdown, and then that was it. You would have really hoped for some more, especially with Kyle Pitts out. Drake London is unstartable in redraft leagues. Do you guys disagree?
I think I do think you can start him, but it depends. Like unstartable is such a harsh term.
It's
right?
relative.
Like,
yeah.
It's relative. I think he's a guy that you can plug in as a bye week fill in. He's got the talent. We saw some flashes of it at the beginning of the year, but again, it's another small pie situation. These are the two smallest pies in the league whenever it comes to players on the receiving side of the ball. But Drake London's got the talent. He's not an every week start. He's a wide receiver 4 with upside.
Drake London or Donovan Peoples-Jones?
Donovan Peoples-Jones, no question.
Oh yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Donovan Peoples-Jones. That was disrespectful to what Donovan Peoples-Jones has been doing recently, Jay. Completely disrespectful. But with that,
was my intent.
We're going to move on to this Cleveland Browns Buffalo Bills game. Speaking of Donovan Peoples-Jones, the Bills pulled this one out 31-23, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has not looked like the Josh Allen that we're used to over the past couple of weeks, and that continued a bit today. Only 18 for 27 for 197 passing yards and 1 touchdown. JL, are you worried about Josh Allen? Do you think this injury is maybe affecting him more than we thought?
Yeah, I think it absolutely could be. I mean, it's on his throwing hand. That's going to be tough. It's tough to play through. I don't know that I'm ready to expect this Josh Allen week in and week out, but it's something I'm keeping my eye on, because if this is the Josh Allen we're getting from now on, that absolutely affects all of these pieces on this team, and that's pretty important considering they're one of the best teams.
Absolutely. Now, Devin Singletary seems to, as Josh Allen has been declining over the past couple weeks, Devin Singletary has been the opposite way, fully ascending, and they could be completely correlated. Because Josh Allen, a rushing quarterback, is injured, Devin Singletary stepping into this role. He had 18 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown this week, added 11 yards through the air off 2 targets, 2 receptions. And I wanted to play a little name game with you guys with Devin Singletary, because he's been turning it on. We got 3 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. So, Jay, rest of the season, David Montgomery or Devin Singletary?
Ooh, you had to go with David Montgomery. I'm going to go Montgomery just because while I love what Devin Singletary is doing, James Cook got in there and got involved and looked pretty good too. So it's close, but with Montgomery having the backfield to himself, I'm going Monty.
JL?
Yeah, I'll go Monty as well.
We'll start with you on this one, JL. Tony Pollard or Devin Singletary rest of the season?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Simon.
This is a curated list of tough questions.
I would go with not Singletary.
Tony Pollard?
Yeah.
Tony Pollard. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, got to go with the upside of Pollard.
What about Miles Sanders or Devin Singletary rest of season? 2 disappointing weeks in a row for Miles Sanders. Singletary's been turning it up recently. Are you rolling with Sanders still, or are you rolling with Singletary?
I think I'll go Singletary on this one. While I've been a known Miles Sanders truther who gave up on him and then bought back in, and then he fell apart again. There is world where this is what Miles Sanders is, and you're just hoping for a touchdown. I think Devin Singletary is pretty much locked into a decent workload and some red zone work.
Yeah, Miles. I would go Miles Sanders here. Between him and Singletary, Miles Sanders, he's been decent. He's RB19 in PPR formats, and I only expect that to continue. Given this team, I expect this team to bounce back from these last 2 losses here, and I'd go Sanders.
On the other side of the ball, the Browns did better against this Bills defense than I expected them to, and Jacoby Brissett had himself a day. He went 28 for 41, 324 yards, and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I'm just going to ask this. I'm pretty sure the answer is no, but Jail, there's no quarterback controversy when Deshaun Watson comes back, right?
No. The
Not
money, Simon. You got to follow the money.
So much money.
Oh, man, can you imagine the buyer's remorse being like, yeah, we're going to redo that. We're going to rewrite that contract.
Jacoby.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson, they threw the absolute bag at him. So, no, I don't think it's a controversy at all. But Jacoby Brissett looked fantastic. He was hitting Amari Cooper on some passes, and I'm just like,
insane.
What? How? Why? What's that? Why? Jacoby?
Why are you doing this now? Like, not when you have the opportunity to actually become the starting quarterback for a team.
Maybe he's really focused and gotten better and just more talented because he looks it. He looks at this season. I'm willing to say that's why.
He looked great in this game and this season. He's put together a couple games like this, and we thought maybe he would just be the game manager back there, right? Like handing the ball off to Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and let it run that way. But this game was on Jacoby Brissett's back, not on the back of these running backs. Nick Chubb had 14 carries for 19 yards. Kareem Hunt had 5 carries for 32 yards. They could get nothing going on the ground against this Bills defense. Not a single thing. It came down to Jacoby Brissett, and he put together a pretty good performance, even though they lost. Joe, you already mentioned Amari Cooper. 12 targets, 8 receptions, 113 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Prior to this week, Amari Cooper was the PPR wide receiver 14. When you're looking at him rest of season, JL, what do you think is his ceiling for where he can finish at the end of the season? He's starting at 14 before this week. He's got Deshaun Watson coming back in 2 weeks, and he's playing like the alpha dog in this offense that he was signed to be. What's that upside?
Simon, the upside is the freaking moon because
Woo!
And listen, I'm the first that has to eat crow on this one because I have relentlessly poo-pooed on Amari Cooper, just nonstop for years. And I was not buying him this year. I was just firmly against it once again. And no, I was wrong. He looks fantastic in this offense. This offense is passing a shit ton, just a ridiculous amount. And like you said, Amari Cooper is the main guy there. Deshaun Watson coming back, I think is going to have a bigger effect than most people are thinking. It's a massive upgrade from Jacoby Brissett. We just sat here and talked about how good Jacoby Brissett has been. He's not Deshaun Watson.
No. And for those of you listening, shit ton is the SI unit for passing attempts. It equals exactly 41 passing attempts in a game.
Jargon.
Yeah. I just wanted to, if anyone was listening who wasn't aware, shit ton is the SI unit for passing attempts in a game, and 41 equals 1 metric shit ton of passing attempts.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Also, Maria said, don't eat crow. We are vegetarians, Jay.
True.
It's impossible crow that you're eating.
Impossible crow.
Eat impossible crow. The last player I wanted to talk about here was the previously mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Dude's an every week start, right? Like just an every week in your lineup, DPJ starting, right?
Could see him being the Will Fuller to throw back to the Texans days for Deshaun Watson. You know, he's deep threat. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with Deshaun Watson under center.
He's a deep threat, but he's not being used just as a deep threat, right? Like he's seeing the targets across the field. So I got comfort in him more than just a boom bust play. He's a safe floor play with the volume that he's been getting in this offense. Guys, let's move on.
Tyler Boyd. That's kind of like what he feels like. Yeah, with Jamar Chase there.
I got you. Like a different kind of player, but like the output, like the role that he plays in the offense, not from like a football perspective.
Right. Yeah, exactly, Simon. You knew exactly what I was translated there.
I knew exactly where you were going on that one. Guys, the last game I wanted to talk about right now is this New York Giants Detroit Lions game. The Lions pulling out the victory 31-18 against the Giants that we thought were good. What happened?
Yeah, they did not look good. Danny Dimes, or excuse me, I don't know if you guys have heard the new nickname that Saquon Barkley gave him. You guys heard this yet? Vanilla Vic. That is the nickname.
Oh, I did hear that.
It's called now. If that is not the cringiest nickname I've ever heard in my entire life, but
yeah.
And Maria saw that on like a clip of that on TikTok. She's like, I don't get it. What is he calling him? I'm like, I was like, what was it? Vanilla Vic? And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. That's a good name.
Yeah. It's just, I love Barkley, but yeah,
I think it's hilarious.
It's just, I don't know. It's cringy to me, but he did not look that great. He did throw for 341 yards, but threw 2 interceptions after really holding back the turnovers here recently. 1 touchdown. Just this is what I was worried about with the Giants. They started off really hot, but I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson had the game of his short career so far. 13 targets, 9 receptions, 100 yards, and then he got hurt. So Daniel Jones was down to Richie James, Darius Slayton, and the ghost of Kenny Golladay. So he's really not throwing to anybody. The Detroit Lions defense has looked a lot better than they started the season. I just think this is kind of what you're going to expect from the Giants the rest of the season. I think they're going to be solid. They're not going to be an embarrassment like they have, but they have been the past couple of years. But I think the only guy you can count on week in, week out is Saquon Barkley, and the rest, if Wan'Dale Robinson's back, I think he's a solid flex play, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if he missed the rest of the season the way that he grabbed his knee. It was kind of scary.
Wait, so I can count on Saquon Barkley week in, week out? I'm sure he did great this week for me, right? Then?
Yeah, he did. He had a game where he had 22 rushing yards, and also, let's see how many passes he caught.
Nice.
He caught 2 catches for 13 yards. So yeah, still an every week start, still somebody you can depend on week in and week out. Just, this is fantasy football. This is the NFL. Sometimes guys just don't get it done on the ground. Any long-term concern?
He's not going to have an elite matchup like the Detroit Lions every week, so he'll be fine.
Right. In all seriousness, any long-term concern for Saquon if this offense does continue to sputter?
Age. I mean, that's definitely a long-term concern to have for him, but other than that, no.
That's a much longer-term concern. Not this year. I'm talking a couple years down the line, but I'm no concerns about Saquon. I was just making a jab because he ruined my fantasy weeks, but I love you, Saquon, and I'm going to start him every single week the rest of the season, as long as he's playing.
And on the line side of the ball, Jared Goff played like Jared Goff. Jamal Williams was the story. 17 carries, 64 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And like we talked about earlier, DeAndre Swift, he only had 5 carries. So I don't know if he's still injured, if they're just trying to, with a somewhat of a lost season, not put the work on his legs. What are you guys doing with DeAndre Swift? Is he still an every week start?
No, he's on your bench. He's on your bench until I see it for me. Like I was starting him and I was saying, okay, it's bound for him to get the work, but I'm not plugging him in my lineups until I see that his usage goes up, because this is an unstartable fantasy running back right now.
Yeah, I'm going to look into this week when where they used him in this game, at what point in the game, because the Lions got ahead. And if they're that far ahead, or even if they're a little bit ahead, and he's injured and they're trying to let him heal, I can see why they wouldn't use him, especially if Jamal Williams is getting the job done. And so I agree with Simon. You got to keep an eye on this. But I do think that this game isn't necessarily confirmation. This is how it's going to be forever.
Yeah, even last week with, granted, he's coming back from injury, but in a close game that they barely pulled out the victory, he only had a 31% snap share. So I'm normally one of the type of fantasy managers that big names, you play them no matter what. You can't start DeAndre Swift until further notice, especially with Jamal Williams looking as good as he does. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is just a stud. Doesn't matter how bad Jared Goff is. Go ahead.
On the Swift point, he still got 11 in PPR formats, 11.2 fantasy points, 8.2 the week before, 8 the week before, and then 14.3 the week before that. That's absolutely startable. So I think it goes back to the point of what Simon said about like that's relative. But I'm fine starting him. It's not going to be what you've been getting until he heals up a little bit more.
No, absolutely. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is really the only wide receiver you want on this team, especially as bad as Jared Goff has looked. He still put up double-digit points. I mean, he's getting close to 10 targets a game. He's the go-to guy, especially with DeAndre Swift not really being too involved. He did have 3 catches, but in previous years, he's been a lot more involved. And TJ Hawkinson out the door. Amon-Ra St. Brown, honestly, as consistent as he looked, I think he's a back-end wide receiver 1 rest of the season.
Yeah, you're plugging them in week in, week out. This offense isn't great with Jared Goff under center, but it's good enough, and the targets are going to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think you can throw him in there.
Yeah.
Guys, everyone who hung out with us this evening, thank you so much. I know Sunday Night Football is about to kick off, so we are going to get out of here, go watch that Chiefs-Chargers game. Hopefully, a big old shootout to end the night. I want an offensive showdown tonight. That's going to be it for us. Thank you, everyone who hung out with us today. We will be back next week, same time, same place. But if you don't want to wait that long, head on over to our YouTube channel at Front Yard Fantasy and subscribe over there. You can see more of all of our handsome faces talking fantasy football and some other nonsense. Until then, though, we are out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the rest of week 11, and we will see you guys on another time.
Bye. See you on